Good morning, everyone. I'm here with my coffee. I'm out of my pumpkin spice, so I'm going to have to get some more. I'm having to drink regular coffee. But I put milk and cream or whatever I've got, and then I put a sweetener in it, whatever I've got. Okay. The two-state solution is promoted by the West out of total ignorance. Why don't we have a two-state solution? Well, why don't we accept Jesus and Satan at the same time? It's that bad. The Muslims don't want a two-state solution. Israel doesn't want a two-state solution. Only the West in this, why don't we just get along? Kumbaya stuff. It doesn't work. Because these people have totally different histories and belief systems. One about a true God and one about a false God. If you can imagine, the false God has teachings that are not good, like kill everybody in the world who doesn't believe exactly the way you do. You think they're not following their Quran when they're continuing these wars? They're following it. It's a religious belief. They're not going to give it up until somebody in great authority comes to earth and explains it to them. They're both related to each other. That's the sad part. Ishmael and Isaac, two sons of Abraham, both with a promise, because they are related to Abraham, both with a promise to prosper and fill the world. But Satan has backed Ishmael and his descendants because he's the one that promoted that in the first place. Get tired of waiting on God and take it into your own hands? Look what you do. You create a problem for the remaining generations throughout history. Adam and Eve created a problem for everyone. Well, Abraham created a problem for everyone too by having two sons, one legitimate and one not so legitimate. So, the two-state solution, whose is that? It's the devil's. Divide and conquer. Create two separate groups that then they can fight with each other. They do that within their own individual religions. The Jews have their two different basic sects, Sadducees and the Pharisees, going back to Jesus' time. Today there's different branches of it, Orthodox, non-Orthodox, etc., etc. And the Muslims have theirs, the Sunnis and the Shiites. The Shiites are the radical ones, but the Sunnis want basically the same thing, world domination. So they put up with it. So the Muslims want the Jews dead. The Jews want the same thing, but maybe not as bad. Just leave us alone. Go away and leave us alone would be sufficient. It doesn't seem like it's going to ever happen until Jesus gets here. The closest is going to come to peace. Now listen to this. The closest is going to come to peace between the two until Jesus comes is when the false Jesus comes. When the Antichrist comes, he will bring peace. They're both looking for the Messiah. They're both looking for the return of Jesus. Well, the Jews are looking for the first coming. Christians are looking for the return. Muslims are looking for the second coming. They don't believe he died. They just think that he strictly went from the cross to heaven. So, two major religious powers fighting over a sliver of land. And the Jerusalem that we have today is not the Jerusalem or the land of Israel is not the land that God gave them. they should have a lot more. They should have some part of the northern countries. They should have most of Judah. They should have all that. What they've got is probably half or a little bit less than what God originally gave them. And they should have taken all their land back, but people were in there and they didn't want to push it. So, here's the story of what's going on so that you know the truth. There are no Palestinians, period. Never have been, never will be. It's a made-up name. When they were kicked out of Israel and Jerusalem destroyed and the temple destroyed in 70 AD, the Romans, wanting to discourage the Jews from coming back, renamed the land after their worst enemy. Now, who's their worst enemy? The Philistines. They were constantly fighting them. So they were their worst enemy. The Philistines feared Israel's God, and that's the only reason they didn't keep fighting. But they still wanted the land. They wanted that crossing area. That was a major trade route down to Egypt and other areas, so they wanted that. But the Jews were there first. Okay, so the Roman people, not understanding the language, misinterpreted Philistine to Palestine or Palestine. So they renamed the land Palestine in hopes that it would discourage the Jews from coming back, encourage the Philistines to come back into the land or come into the land and inhabit it. Do you know who the original Palestinians were? Jews. Not every Jew left when they were run out of town by the Romans. A lot of them stayed. There were some of the Jews that were nomadic, that farming, that had their sheep on the hills and stuff. They didn't know that they weren't Muslim or anybody else in there. They just know that they wanted the cities, the aristocrats, the high-level Jews to be out of the area. And they kicked them out. Sold them to slavery, whatever they did to get rid of them. They didn't want them back, ever. And we're told that a descendant of those that did this destruction will be the Antichrist. Now, we've been so many generations from then, it could be anybody on the earth. We have no clue. It will be somebody who's not a Christian, not a true Christian anyway. Okay. The fact that Israel exists today proves God's prophecy, because it's discussed in the Old Testament. The prophets talked about it. Isaiah specifically, but Ezekiel talked about it. Jeremiah talked about it. They all talked about it. So when Israel was reborn in 1948, a result of sympathy from the Holocaust of World War II, they decided that they'd better give them a state that they can hide in. And Kitty's up here right now, so let's say hi. Okay, yeah, you can lick my fingers, but don't bite my fingers. And I know you want to play, but we're not going to play today. So, it was created in it was approved in 1947. It officially became a state in 1948. I got to finish cutting your claws. You didn't let me finish the last time. His claws are grabbing onto me. No, no, no. I've got long sleeves on, so I can put up with this a little bit. Go get him. Go get him. Okay. Okay, so the original Palestinians were Jews. It's so ironic. They've lied and lied and lied. And who's the father of lies? Good. And that's the father of the Muslim religion, because it's all based on lies. It's an attempt of Satan to create a copycat to Christianity. We have Jesus as our leader. They have Muhammad is theirs. So every time the West has come up with this brilliant plan of having a two-state solution, oh, but we all must get along. We're all just going to be so happy together. Not when you got people that are butting heads and want each other dead. Iran said as soon as they get their nukes ready, they're going to bomb Israel and the United States, the great Satan. Israel's the little Satan. Lies. When they themselves are the great Satan. Kitty's running around, making noise. So, did the West Bank solve the solution? No. Did Gaza solve it? No. The Muslim movement is basically taking over the world. That's their plan. They're in Europe now. If you're a Christian in the UK, you're in trouble. You can get arrested for reading the Bible on the street. So you can't convince these two to stop fighting, ever. Kitty, he's doing his terror runs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of history. Current Roman leaders renamed the land. We already covered that. The Jews left. There was really nobody else there. It wasn't that great of a country back then when they first created it. It will come back to being the land of milk and honey, but right now it's dry bones. So, the Muslims claim that Muhammad traveled to Jerusalem to worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and that he ascended from the Temple Mount, of all places, to heaven. So they basically attempted to block all access to the Jews for their holy land that they claimed, which was a lie. First off, the Al-Aqsa Mosque wasn't created when Muhammad was alive. That was part of the mosque. Basically is land and property that they took over that was part of the original temple. The temple had the temple building itself, but it also had office buildings around it, if you will. Kitty, stop it. I got to finish cutting your nails today. I got to wait till he's totally run out of energy, though. I tried cutting him a few days ago, and I got a couple of them cut, and then he just squirmed out of my hands and wouldn't let me catch him after that. Okay, now he's got something on the floor to play with. That'll keep him busy. Okay, so they are completely relying on the ignorance of the West, of not knowing the culture, not knowing the Quran or the Bible to be able to pull this off. So, the Prophet Muhammad had what they call their night journey, Isra, Mijab. I don't think I'm pronouncing those right, but I'm reading them the way I know how to. He traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem in a single night. That's a multi-day ride on a camel. Our wise guys came from there, bringing gifts to Jesus. And it took him many days to get there. But they say he went in a miraculous trip in one night. Where is the proof? There isn't any. It's narrated in the Quran and other Islamic texts. Is understood to have occurred in his first revelations. He was carried by a winged steed, Barak to Jerusalem, and then ascended to heaven. That's the basic story. He's supposed to have met with the prophets and prayed with prophets and done other things. The Quran mentions this journey, Sarah al-Asra. But it doesn't detail the experience. As with the Jews rewriting the Bible in their commentaries, the Quran was rewritten many times. until they got the message they wanted. And when they finally accepted the current version, they looked around at all the different Qurans, and there were hundreds of them. They picked the most popular and made it the new state religious document. So it says that it went on a journey to the Far Mosque. They believe it to be the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but again, the Al-Aqsa Mosque didn't get built until after Muhammad. See, this it's based on lies, so if you're going to base it on lies, why have any truth in it at all? So Muhammad supposedly prayed with the prophets and then ascended to heaven. So he disappeared. He went on this journey and disappeared. So they made up a story on him. So Muhammad's supposed to be in God's presence. See, it's Satan's copycat. Copycat to Jesus. And that's why they're claiming all this land. That's why they're insisting that the Jews get out of their land. When the truth is, it's never been the Muslims' land. Well, prior to Joseph leading the people from the desert into the promised land, they still wouldn't have been Muslim. The Muslim religion basically was created through Muhammad. He was born in 5-something AD. AD. So going back to BC, they weren't Muslims back then. There were the other groups that lived in the area. The Philistines, the Assyrians, other groups that lived in the area. And when Israel came in conquering with God's help, they all ran off. Some tried fighting, but most of them got scared off. So Israel, the nation of Israel, basically was established when they moved in. So there will never be peace between these two. Well, the only semblance of peace will be when the Antichrist comes and he brings the two parties together, telling them the truth, that Muhammad didn't go there. It's not a holy land for them. I don't know if he's going to tell them that. It may be that he tells them that it's holy to both. But the Jews are going to be allowed to build the temple, and they will have a 7-year peace plan. This tissue is more valuable than the peace plan paper that they're going to write on. But they will believe it for a little while, for 3.5 years anyway, roughly, until the Antichrist defiles the temple and the Jews open their eyes and realize what they've done. Then they're told to flee. Jesus will correct things in time, but the Antichrist will be here first, which means we won't be here. But that's why this lie is being perpetuated by the world. Anti-Semitism is being perpetuated around the world, along with the Muslim right to the land, by their king, Satan. You're never going to resolve this. In the Bible, it's never resolved until Jesus takes care of things. We can't resolve it. We can pray about it. We can help. But we can't solve the problem. It's a spiritual problem. It's never been a physical problem. All right. That's all for now. So until we see Jesus in the clouds, do the best you can. God bless.